All right. Thank you, Ari. Well, next up, we have Richard Kerris, good friend, longtime friend, who is here, and he was here last year as well. He is director of M&E at NVIDIA. And we have Fede Alvarez, who directed the last film in the storied franchise, the Alien franchise. He directed Alien Romulus. We'll be playing that trailer once they're on stage. But I'd like to welcome Richard and Fede to the stage. Thank you, guys. Hey. Good to see you in person. It's a pleasure. All right. Welcome to RenderCon again. And for the first time.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
So yeah, I hope you guys heard the tail end of the talk with Ari.
Yeah.
What I figured, we were talking about this previously, is I figured we should, obviously, the perspective of a filmmaker, and in your case, Richard, I mean, this deep understanding of NVIDIA is such a unique position in terms of influencing how the technology goes, but therefore how art goes. All of that is something that I think is fascinating for this talk, and I want to let you guys get into that. I was wondering, Fede, can we play the trailer for Alien Romulus so the folks here can see it if they have
Sure.
it? All right. We can roll that. Let's start with that. Uh-oh.
Looks a bit dark.
Very dark movie.
It's,
I was like, wait a second. I don't remember being that technical difficulties. Well, I guess while they're sorting that out.
it's amazing, by the way. You
Yeah.
missed it out. Like you should have
It is.
seen it. It was something else.
I mean, I have a question just as a fan. Like, what kind of pressure was there when you're like, I'm taking this on after the Finchers and the Camerons and all that? I mean, how did you feel going into that? Doing that movie and finding your way in that.
Yeah, I think with all these things, the reality is that it's so exciting. It truly is. I'm from Uruguay. I never thought I was going to make a movie, one movie here in Hollywood, less to have a career. And so we suddenly at the table with Ridley and even had the chance to talk with a lot of other directors that made Alien in the past, from Cameron to Fincher. It's so exciting that the nervousness of like, oh my God, what am I doing? How am I daring to do this? There's not a lot of time for that. And most of the pressure comes from, I think for any artist that does this, the pressure from within of like, this has to be good. You want to do a good job. It's way bigger than even the internet or whoever is like having opinions about what it might be or not be. But it's been a great ride making it and a dream come true.
Amazing. Well, Richard, I think what would be great would just be to get a state of the union from your perspective. Seeing, because we have videos as well for the stuff from Runway, and I know you talked about LTX, Baron Rubin I mentioned earlier. It would be great to just get a high level, perspective from you as to where you see everything being at the center with NVIDIA and all the different pieces that connect to that.
Sure. I think we have finally started to get to the tipping point of from waiting to manipulating. And by that, for years, we were always waiting for the render.
Yeah.
Right? For years, because we all know it's like how many more hours, how long per frame, and all of that stuff. And recently, as we've seen with Vera Rubin and the video that we'll show, hopefully, we're seeing it now in real time.
Yeah.
And so what that means is now, it went from years ago waiting for a render per frame to a few years ago, now everything could be rendered in real time, to now we're crossing the threshold of generating in real time. And so what does that mean from a filmmaker's perspective? I think it gives you more options, more tools. And this is something that we were talking about earlier. It doesn't replace the taste and the spontaneity and all of these other things. I think that what we see as the opportunity is to give more storytellers the capability of realizing their vision. The narrative now is the tool, not the wireframing and the understanding all of the software aspects, but what is the story you want to tell, and to be able to tell it and interactively work with that on the screen. And I think we're going to see just a tremendous amount of new content from far off places and storytellers that never would have had that chance before.
Yeah, I believe it, and I mean, we can play those videos. I think the videos are working.
Let's do the alien video, please.
We won't win that.
All right.
Oh, there you go.
Come on, help me, please.
No, what is it?
Get it, no, let go.
Run.
Yeah. Thank you. Incredible.
Amazing.
AI video generation changes how scenes are created and directed, but can't scale at the speed AI simulation and creator workflows require. Just 3 months ago, Runway's Gen 4.5 generated scenes in minutes. Now their new model, accelerated by Vera Rubin, generates them instantly. That speed changes everything. Instead of waiting for a render, scenes can be directed while they are generated. With just a simple prompt, new frames appear. When new direction is given, the scene updates again in real time. Video generation becomes a live creative loop. In NVIDIA Cosmos, real-time video generation can also be used to simulate physical environments for training Alpamayo. Starting from a single image, a complete world is generated and can be explored. Every new frame is generated in real time as the car moves. Because the world is generated rather than recorded, developers can create large numbers of rare or dangerous scenarios. These edge cases are critical for training Alpamayo's reasoning abilities. With Vera Rubin, real-time video generation is no longer a concept. It's here and reimagining what's possible.
That's pretty
Big
crazy.
spectrums, yeah. Thank you.
I have a question. When and how much for Vera Rubin?
When and how? Well, if you have to ask,
Yeah. Okay.
I think the accessibility of it will be broad because people will start using it from the cloud. The idea of
Yeah.
having the data centers and things.
It's not going to be in a, like a 60/90 kind of deal, you know. For these.
No, well, you'll see new tools and stuff, but I think that the important aspects that you saw there is the interactivity. And
Absolutely, yeah.
the only delay there was almost the prompting, and that's going to change with agentic AI, where you'll have agents, and you'll have your agent being a lighting director, and you'll have an agent doing other things, and you'll direct it and drive it interactively in that context. That's some of the things that we have been talking about. Just because you have all of those tools doesn't have a make movie button or make great and stuff like that. These are just tools with which you can realize a vision, and that vision is your story and your narrative. And I think it's important that we maintain that aspect and listen to the community very much. And it's, Runway was an example there. We see really great interactive tools with LTX. A lot of other companies now that are taking this approach of, hey, I want to give more capabilities to the creative process and let the creative process have more freedom to do things.
Yeah. I mean, if Fede is a filmmaker, I mean, especially in the world of production of VFX, I mean, how does it make you feel, or how does it? I mean, I assume in some ways enticed, but like, what do you envision from this kind of technology from your position? And
Well, I think this is a conversation we're having backstage. Like the first thing for me I have to do is like split all this movie making thing into areas. Right, you have the few people. There's very few, unfortunately, very few that can really make movies, games, TV at the level that is so elite, that is so good, that it moves the world emotionally, right? So we talk about all the movies that you love, all the movies that you guys have seen, my favorite movies ever, right? Those. So there's people that do that. It's very hard to find those people. It's very hard to do those things. That's one. And then there's everything else, right? I think for the everything else, this is fantastic because it allowed the young guy that could never get the money to do what he wants to do to suddenly do something and show. That's how I got a break in this town. I made a short movie more than 10 years ago now, in 2010, called Panic Attack. It was about giant robots destroying Uruguay, my hometown. It was all done with software like that I could find here and there, with plugins, with thing. We done it with $300, but it was quite a spectacle. Now, was that at the level of the big movies? No, by no means. But it gave me a career. It just got me foot through a door, and managed to get people in Hollywood to go. And Sully, I was living in Uruguay, and next week I was actually sitting with Ari Emanuel. He was trying to sign me the next day. I went with CA, unfortunately, at that time. I'm with WB now. But at the time, so that was overnight thing based on technology that at the time everybody was going like, this will change everything. Did it? Not really. For the movies, I didn't use any of that for the actual movies, but it really helped me to get there. So I think that this is what I think is going to do the most. It's going to help break filmmakers are going to do it. Now for the bigger, the best, that's very complicated because in movies, you have to do sometimes like 40 takes with a human being in front of you that listens exactly, understand exactly what you're saying. Still takes 40 takes to make that version that makes a movie or any product be perfect and elite and the best stuff that you can watch on a big screen. So, and I'm sure this will get there at some point. For now, it's just not there yet, but I think to make the whole movie. But for visual effects and for a lot of things that we're waiting for renders all the time, oh my God, can't wait,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because traditional rendering, again, on the latest gen, is, I don't know if you saw the very beginning of the presentation, but with the LSS and radiance cache, we have real-time path tracing. But I do feel like, there's also, I was reading about a production, I think it was, they're filming in London, where it's like it's on gray screen, actors, but everything, other than like a piano and stuff, everything is virtual, and it's $70 million cheaper. Because of that, and they're treating it more like a theater production. That kind of stuff feels like, well, okay, you're still making the movie, there's still a crew, all this stuff, but you're just not spending the same money on massive amounts of either sets or whatever. And they filmed it all in one soundstage. That kind of stuff feels like, even the stuff I was showing for virtual production, it can be huge to have those kind of savings.
It has to be in service of the story,
Yep.
right? Technology for technology's sake doesn't make anything that you might ooh and ah for a scene, but other than that, it's not going to bring you in. That's what the point that I make is that storytelling process and the things that go on in that process, whether it's spontaneity from an actor on set who doesn't want to listen to the director, wants to do something different, as we're talking about, or the limitations that the particular scene might have. And I thought your example on the first Aliens, where the budget wasn't high enough to do something, so it created some restrictions that ended up being part of the deliverable, the darkness and the what's there, and so your mind is inferring things. I think those are important elements that have to remain in the process because these are just technology tools to kind of get you from the waiting to the manipulating. What are you going to do with it that matters, right? Just because you have all that stuff doesn't make the film. And I think that's an important aspect that people have to understand. I know there's lots of passionate thoughts about AI. And I just look at it and, I say, well, what's the story you have to tell? If you're going to tell that story, then AI is either a path to get there or don't use it. It's not forced thing.
No, I mean, I think we're all in agreement that, storytelling is why we're all here. And if this is not in service of the technologies, in service of, if anything, I think spectacle now is fully commoditized. I mean, explosions don't seem to really, that is pretty easy to generate, right? But it doesn't.
But there was a day. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the part that I'm looking for the most is like the VFX of it all, because I think we have reached some plateau in Hollywood where it's really hard to impress the audience anymore with visual effects.
Yeah.
Like you really have to go above and beyond and do things differently. And with Alien, we were nominated for an Oscar for the visual effects, and we had to do everything differently that the way they would have done it normally. Every step of the way into that process, we had to go in a different direction. That was by default, because the audience is just so used to see it, and we have lost. It used to be the greatest show on earth, and I think it has to be again in order to really reach the masses the way we used to. And in that aspect is when AI has done shots that I'm like, what am I looking at? What is this? and it really blows your mind when it's done well. You know, it composed better than I think the composition that is done by hand. Sometimes there's certain visual effects that I think is going to be exciting. But yeah, but the disagreement in the way that we had in the backstage was like, it was obviously we said technology, and everybody always when we work at technology says like this is going to help you make better movies, and I always said like that's The Godfather was made without cell phones, like and without printers, and people had to go to pay phones to call production, and there was nothing, and some of the if you put the list here of the best movies ever made, most of the best ones from Star Wars in the back, like, they didn't have any other technology. We had all this technology since then, and we have some things to show up for, but not a ton. So it doesn't necessarily make it better. A lot of times it just takes things in the wrong direction. So it's really about how the artists decide to use it, I think. But there's definitely a very powerful and exciting way to use this. Which, I think obviously the tendency to think, let's make everything with this to save money, but that doesn't solve a problem. Hollywood has money. That's never been the issue, like to solve that it solves, right?
Yeah, and we've seen this over and over with technology advancements. You know, when it optical to digital, when in the music industry we saw it with sampling and things like that, and it didn't kill the industry. It didn't replace things. You know, the synthesizer didn't replace the orchestra, and all of those things. But it just became part of the fabric to be used as needed. And again, you know, I think the music industry shows a lot of similarities when everything was able to be done on a laptop versus a big recording studio. You have Grammy Award-winning records done that way. I think what we're going to see with this kind of technology is the ability for storytellers in far parts of the world that would have never had the opportunity to tell that story from like your hometown and such, to be able to get something out there that has the quality that people can accept and look at it and get into that story. That is the key. Again, like, you know, George Lucas said many years ago that technology is in service of the story, not the other way around. And it's the story that wins and makes a great film, whether it's one with effects or with no effects. You know, it's really that's what matters.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I mean, one of the things I've always wanted to do with the Octane and democratizing GPU rendering is you don't need a render farm, all those things. But, you know, the thing that Ari was mentioning as well is that distribution is changing. I mean, YouTube is now the biggest, you know, venue there is, and everybody has equal access practically to that, you know, at the start.
Yeah, think about what AI can do in these, you know, the plumbing aspects of things with distribution. For example, you make a film and you want to release it in multiple languages. You either can do it with subtitles, or you can do it with a voiceover and the mouth doesn't match and things. But with AI, you can actually go in there and neurally render that so that it fits the language that's being told. So you can make one version and distribute it out in multiple languages and stuff. That's a great use of AI to broaden the footprint of that story to getting out there. You know, there's lots of things like that I think people don't understand how AI can be so useful. They see the flashy images and they get worried that that's replacing something. And, you know, is it disruptive? Absolutely. We're not kidding. It's disruptive, but it's also making things more accessible, more easier to distribute for less money. There's a lot of those aspects that AI brings to the mix that I think people need to understand why that's so integral to our industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes the boring stuff that it can solve is actually pretty relevant, you know, and I think that's true of you know, many parts of the space. I think, you know, maybe on the creative side, it would be interesting to touch on, you know, you're saying that, like, you know, spectacle, right, is sort of is plateaued, but I think even in terms of, I feel like now more than ever, right, original stories are going to be the most valuable currency. I think even Ari was talking about that a little bit. And, you know, I'm just curious, Fede, you know, where do you see that playing out? Like, how do we compete when it's literally, maybe that's the most important part of it, not the budget, not the spectacle of it. I mean, maybe there's still a thread there, but it feels like we're on another era where storytelling is going to be the main differentiating factor.
Well, I think that's where cost comes into play, I think. It's there's times where Hollywood takes more risks, and that's when it makes better movies. And why does it take more risk? It's not because they're feeling like, oh, I'm feeling risky today. It's just because they're making more money and the risk is less. And there was a time where, you know, even not too long ago, you'll make a movie a certain price. So no one might see it on theaters, but you'll get the money back on DVDs because people bought DVDs all the time. So there was times where risk was less, so people were making more movies, risking more. And the best stuff usually, the weirder stuff, the Matrix kind of movies, they come out on those times where people are like, you know what, I don't know what this is. Some producer was like, I don't know what this madness is. But if you make it for this price and you get one of these actors, you go knock yourself out.
Yep.
That means he knows that somehow he's going to get the money back. Now, we live in different times now, and people are way more scared now. So the cost, that's when it helps. If someone comes with a Matrix kind of movie today that no one understands, but might be the next big thing, and he has a way to do it for a price because there's technology that allows for certain spectacle, then I hope that will bring more risk, a bunch of terrible movies. But in the mix of those terrible movies, there's always comes those jewels, right? And they come out of the time. So that's what I hope it does when it comes to the cost. Movies are too expensive, that's for sure. But so if there's a way to reduce it, but still involve all the best artists, and we find some good middle ground there, I hopefully will reduce risks for Hollywood, and it will dare to make more movies, and hence out of the mass usually comes the better stuff. Right?
Yeah, and remember, consumption of media is at an all-time high, and it's not slowing down at all.
Yeah.
And another aspect is the way people watch. Some people watch things vertically.
It's so weird,
Frustrates
but
me to no end, but that's a different story. Or they watch it horizontally, mobile, TV, theater. All of those are another aspect. If somebody's going to watch your film vertically, how are you going to be assured that they're watching the proper part of the frame that you did horizontally?
Well, I hope they don't watch my movie.
I know. Believe me, it kills me when I watch people watching movies like that. I'm like, don't you understand? It's how they want to do it. We're not going to change it. But what we can do is ensure that what they are watching is the proper part of the frame. That's the character you should be watching, not something with nothing going on. Yeah. So it's and then we have all the micro shows that are minute long TikToks and.
We're not sure what forms phones might have, though, in 5 years, right? You have foldables, you have glasses. But, it's interesting. YouTube, I guess it's still like, it's the largest TV, outlet in the world right now, which is fascinating. And the fact that there's also, when we put out our YouTube structures, it's like 51% watch it on a TV. And I was shocked at that. I figured YouTube was in a browser on a phone, but... it's one thing that Ari did say that made me sort of sad is that he's like, I don't think he's thinking that movie theatrical stuff is in a healthy place. So I hope that somehow all this stuff, and I love movies. I mean, obviously, I think that's just something that's deeply inspiring to me. So I hope somehow that gets sorted out with other venues. But I think to Fede's point, right? I mean, you don't have VOD or home video in the same way to subsidize things, but.
I believe it will. I believe the theatrical experience will thrive. It's just taking a bit. I mean, look at, again, back to the music analogy. There's more people going out to concerts than ever before, and they're getting bigger and major productions and stuff like that. I think there's a community aspect of people like going to the theater. I think there's, you're not bothered with your phone and everything else when you're at home watching it on a screen. You're committed to that experience. It's the content that'll bring people back in there. Great movies that entice you to want to see it in that big screen experience. I don't think that's going to go away. I just think that we need to see more content that drives for that.
Yeah. Well, and you still have IMAX theaters, right? That are, that I think are a big driver. And of course, when movies are good and they still resonate. I mean, I think Project Hail Mary did pretty well.
Hail Mary is a phenomenal film in IMAX and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm a believer. I don't think that's going to go away.
Fede, I guess in terms of just going back, how do you feel about like what Nolan's approach, I guess, where like going to film and digital versus film, practical versus CG? Because in some ways, I feel like some of these conversations are echoes of that as well. Like I love physical models, right? And I in my mind, like anything CG, like if you break the way the camera works and it doesn't look like it was filming a model or a miniature or the real thing, it doesn't feel like a film to me. And I sometimes wish that, the budgets were, that we could do practical. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, especially doing top franchise films like in the Alien world, like what do you think of that, that delineation between the two?
Like there was a discussion we had on Alien many times at the beginning where, I'll be at a table and I would say, I guess most filmmakers will say, like, oh, I want to approach this as practical as possible. I want to do miniatures. I don't want to do any green screens. We did it on the movie with a lot of backdrop paintings and stuff like that. So someone says at the table, sometimes the studio usually, sometimes the VFX side, was like, you know what? Yeah, I know what you mean. We tried that in the last 10 movies. You end up replacing everything with CG eventually. You'll be basically they were saying you'll be disappointed with that approach that I know that you find romantic and interesting, and at the end we're gonna have to pay double, and we have to replace it with CG. And I was like, I hear you, but hopefully that won't happen. That did not happen in Alien. Like what you see, every decision we made when it comes to the approach to the practical was end up being practical. Now, but my point at the table was never trying to argue about what looks better. You know, like
Yeah.
I think that looks more realistic. I think a mistake sometimes filmmakers do is to say, oh, practical I think looks more believable. They go on this whole thing, which I agree, but it's kind of a, you know, it's a difficult, this subjective conversation about what's better and what's not. So my conversation was never about that. This applies to all this and also applies to the AI of it all. It's like, it's not that what's better. It's the reason why I got into making movies is because I want to be in a set surrounded by these toys and working with actors that talk to me and I tell them what to do. And that's the reason. For any artist that does anything, painting, writing, making movies, the process is not a means to an end, right? It's not like, I wish I could just tell a computer and it exists. No artist wants that. No painter was like, look at the canvas, it goes like, oh, I wish I could just snap my finger, that beautiful painting will be there, you know, that because all I'm trying to do is put this painting on the thing. No, it's the pleasure of doing, it's the pleasure of the craft. So with movies it's the same, with the practical it's the same. So it's the pleasure of the craft, to working with the artists that do it. So when if you tell me, oh, Fede, but you can just prompt that it will be there, you would like, don't tell me that. I don't want to know that. I just don't, because that's not the reason why I'm doing it. Now, the industry might go like, just get Fede out of there, just snap your fingers and do it because he's making cost me a lot of money and making this process long and boring. Now, but the industry have learned many times that, because that's the curve we're all the time. Hollywood first got artists to do the way, to show the Hollywood how it's done. They did it, and Hollywood got to a point goes like, I think I understand what you're doing. I don't need you anymore. I'm gonna get a bunch of people, a shooter, a thing, journalists instead of writers. That's what we did, and I think I got it. I don't want this playwriter like we did at the beginning. Give me a journalist that writes fast. I need to get there faster. And then they did that, and that always reached a breaking point where everything is bad quality, and then they go, oh, God damn it. And he comes the late 60s, and like, we're going to need these hippies to make movies to show us how to connect with people. And that's when Easy Riders comes, and all these movies come, and they're very, you know, human and messy, and Hollywood goes like, oh, this is what it's done. And that makes a lot of money, and then it works. But then slowly, Hollywood again goes like, I think I got it. I think I know, I understand what these hippies are doing. I don't need you guys. I'm just going to hire these people that work for me, do exactly what I prompt them to do. And they're going to get it there first and cheaper. And then they do for a while, and then it collapses again. So I think this is a bit of that moment. And that's exactly what machine learning is. It's like, I got it. But I know what a beautiful smile is, and it does it. And it works for a moment, but you know, when I see those montages, and I'm a sucker for technology, and when I look at that, it blows my mind how it does it. As a director, I look at it, it's a bunch of bad performances, really bad performances I wouldn't have put in the movie. For now, I'm sure it will get more subtle and better. But that is the distinction here, a lot of things. The artist does it because he loves to do it. It's not a means to an end. The industry doesn't want to deal with the artist that wants to do it.
Well, forget the industry for a second. I want to go back to your point because I can completely relate to the interactivity that you have on set. Have you worked with virtual sets where you've got the actors and you're still interacting with them, but now if you say, no, I want this to be a days scene, and it can turn into a days, oh no, wait, I don't want to go back to the dark again. That kind of mix of the two where you still have that interactivity on set, which I completely respect, but the other things that the technology can help you on, unless you're a very patient person and you say, no, I'll wait for the 5 hours for you guys to reset this. But to be able to just say, I want this set to change, and it can change instantly. Is that something that you would entertain? It's a mix, both what your love of the interactivity is and where technology, where it matters, because it helps me go from waiting to manipulating.
Yeah, well, like, nobody likes to wait around. That's what we always say in this. We get paid to wait around because all the other part is fun and the waiting around is the boring part. So it really depends on what part of the process we're talking about. For people that love I have to be the guy that doesn't want to have a screen in virtual production because, again, it steals from the reality of being on the real place. But if I need it for something like and on Alien, we wanted to have that for outside the cockpit of the ships. It was a great way to do it. It was like, we don't have to do a green screen. Actors can see space render real time, something like that, magnificent. And actually the issue we had, which we ended up not doing that, was because just the pipeline of it all was just too tedious and long, and we'll have, ILM would have, and Weta would have to have all the assets ready in time by the time we sit down to shoot, and the process is never realistic. You're always going to shoot it before you have figured out the whole reality of what's out of the window, what's out there. Yeah. So a lot of times it's not ready. But if we something like that where you can change it on real time, and the thing is, like, you have to commit 100% to whatever it is to be useful. So it's just, the pipelines will have to change, and the way we do it have to change. And I think it will. Like, the next time, and if I make a movie like this, I will probably start earlier to develop all that is out of the window. Everything goes in the screens, but this sort of not waiting for the renders will make it possible, at least, to suddenly have environments where you can do that. And it's a lot of productions that work with virtual productions and love that. Just snap your fingers and change it to daytime, but which is part of what makes things great usually, to be able to change things.
The spontaneity on the spot. And I think, to your point, that's where the magic happens on a set. It's not, everything can be set up and ready to go, but it's the actor that's, I'm going to change this, or the director goes, I want to change this. If you don't have that, then you lose so much of what the taste that comes out of the storyline is, And that's one thing I always emphasize too, is that, these things aren't set out to replace taste and the emotional connection. That happens through spontaneity, sometimes limitations, sometimes just on-the-fly ideas and stuff. And this should always just serve in that context. Like, technology should not be, just because you can do it, sometimes you don't want to use it at all. It's just another tool in your bag of things that you may want to use.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because if you look at Photoshop and how, that was something that, it effectively did give you a lot of options, but it also had constraints as well. I mean, it didn't fundamentally change the way photographs work, but I do feel like with, and I'm curious about the volume as well, because there used to be, when Mandalorian came out, it was the first, I think it was actually the Neil Armstrong movie before that was the first time I heard about LED walls. I think people have sort of cued now, their eyes are better attuned to seeing when something's shot on a volume. Same thing with AI generated stuff. I think we're starting to understand, even without the 6 fingers, there's still cues, right? So and that's the thing with CG as well. I mean, being a CG guy, when something isn't comped right or the lighting's not right or whatever, that's the tell. So I do feel like there's shooting things practically, really, where you can. I mean, if you can, I think is amazing. And also, I think to your point, the process, the actors, everything else around that gives it that kind of energy. But nevertheless, that is probably in certain cases expensive. But we'll see how it all plays out. Richard, I think on the NVIDIA side, you guys are building tools like Cosmos. And we've worked with NVIDIA for 13 years, as a partner doing renders, things like that. How do you guys see, the ecosystem? I mean, I was talking about Photoshop, right? But I was saying in my earlier talk, like, I just think dApps are going to be blended. We have Francesco from Blender here, right? But I feel like they're going to be mixed together in agents, right? And I think that's a very different experience, even if you're a digital artist, from any things we have now. How does NVIDIA look at that, especially since a lot of these things are built on CUDA, on your hardware, and you have Omniverse and many things that you built over the years that are built around the hardware stack?
Well, I think, historically, we were almost slaves to the computer. You had to learn the software, you had to learn how to use it, and then you would create something and store it on the computer, then retrieve it back, and you had this kind of, like, slave to what the computer needed you to do. You had, you know, if you're going to learn Maya or you're going to learn any of these other things, it was many manuals and a lot of time and things. Now that's flipped around where you're telling the computer what you want. It is more Star Trek in that you say, I want you to create this for me. And so these creative tools and what we're seeing in the ecosystem is them starting to mix this into their workflows and their tool sets so that you can use an agentic approach to something where you might say, like in a photography example, as I do a lot of photography, so you may go shoot, you know, a couple thousand shots for a concert, and you may come back and be able to say, I want all the shots of this cataloged and stacked. I want all the shots of that, and to have those tasks that normally would have taken you many hours to do become a very valuable tool. And I think that companies are starting to see how to put them in a very like purposeful way. I think Adobe's the way they've brought AI into Lightroom and now into Premiere and things, they're doing it with a deliberate approach to ensure that they don't disrupt their installed base, but they're kind of bringing new things to it. And I think we're going to see more of that from the other partners that are in our ecosystems, as well as all of the new companies. I mean, you know, there's thousands of brand new companies in the media and entertainment space because of these capabilities. That, you know, we have small companies, large companies, one's doing all different types of aspects for it. And I think that's great because it goes back to that earlier point of the storytellers are the ones that are going to be in control. And they've always been very limited to where they are geographically, how much money they have, and who they know. And what we've seen, you know, the boom with YouTube and TikToks and other things is people can be a creative person and make money at it anywhere in the world. Now we're just giving them more capabilities to have a higher quality of that. And to my point earlier, I think we're going to see Hollywood blockbusters done by a couple people in a far off land that had an idea and they wanted to get it out there. And that to me is like, that's the new frontier of stuff that's going to be exciting.
Amen. Yep. I mean, as far as like, you know, Fede, as far as tech that you're seeing, I mean, you know, you're saying you're enticed by some technical aspects of this stuff. What is it specifically that you've seen, you know, even on the CG world, the virtual brush world, but also, of course, in the AI space that interests you, that pulls you into like, well, I'd like to understand this better, even if it's weird and, you know, I mean, like,
well,
any example?
agents are one that I think people should get their head around because you can have agents specific for certain tasks and then connect them all up. It's become just part of the day-to-day work that we do, whether it's like, hey, I need you to review all of these emails and pull out the action items for me and create a, you know, a to-do list or whatever, and you can just parse that off to an agent or a couple agents that connect. That's just like mundane stuff, but boy, is that a time saver. So I think we're at the cusp of where that is just going to become part of our everyday life in the same way the internet is. We can't be without it and stuff like that. These agents that we'll have will control your home, your things around the house, your work side of things to give you more freedom. And so that's the thing that interests me a lot is if I want a particular application, I haven't written software in a million years, but I could make one today because I have an agent that I could say, I want to write an application that's going to do these specific things for me, and then make that. And that barrier is like, it's really interesting to me because the discipline that it would take to write a piece of software just 10 years ago was many years, as you know.
Yeah.
But today, it's really the idea. It's like, and you still have to understand the basics. Like when people say, you know, what do I need to know to get into AI? It's like, what do you want to do with it? If you want to be a filmmaker, you better learn how to make films. Because if you can't tell an AI about a shot, the lighting, and the angles, and the dollies, and all these other things, you're not going to make anything that people are really going to want to see. It's when you know all of those things that you can then direct it into this. That's where I think we get great stuff out of it. It's not about somebody goes, I'm going to go see the new AI movie. And it's like, I'm going to go see this new story. I'm going to go see something that just gets me just excited or scared or whatever.
Yeah. Fede, and your end of things, I mean, as far as, you know, anything in the tech space that, you know, as you can contemplate another film, I mean, what parts would feel like useful with it, with this sort of mindset that you have of focusing more on the practical? As I think I understand well, but like, are there things that are like, wow, this didn't exist before, from my, and it could be even just ways to trick photography, right? But things that could be solved with, with digital, like wire removal. I think when they were doing like the first Superman movie, it was like grease and crazy things on the lens and front, and it's like, well, you could still put them on wires, but you do have a way of like shooting it from other angles and things like that. So I'm just curious, anything like that is percolating in your head as you've seen, the kinds of things this technology can do.
Ooh, there's so many there, and there's many things that I think will help us save time, also reach creative, even on some technical side. One of there's this tendency, or there's something that's been happening a lot. I'm from Uruguay. When I go back home now, for some reason, people want to see movies in their own language more and more. So dubbed movies start to be a thing that is more and more. And of course, for me, it's hard to watch something you wrote in a certain language that seemed like just dubbed, and it's tough. They don't care. Those audiences, they're used to it. There's other people making the voices, but you watch the performance of that. And now I think AI will help suddenly be able to keep maybe the voice, the ring of the voice of the actor, and have the lip sync, and which of course disruptive for all that industry, because part of the reason why that exists is because a lot of people that work on the dubbing industries and they want to preserve that. But apart from all those things, like that's definitely going to make movies and change in other language and reach more audiences. I think the main thing is what you guys say as well, like giving a voice to people that cannot reach the masses at all, because they don't have the resources of the technology. And that's what I did at the time with software and things that were suddenly available to me, and I could make a short that brought me to Hollywood. I think that's good. So it's going to be interesting to see people from other parts of the world to suddenly show what they have to say in a way in a story, because they suddenly have tools that allow them to make that short movie or make whatever they want to do. I think when it comes to that, just again, giving tools to the masses so they can do more things and shows what I have to say. That's a massive part of it. And then it's an endless thing. But even for scripts, it's not that I don't think every time with my co-writer we go and play with it, we laugh at how terrible any of these models are at the moment at writing. But it's great for someone that, for instance, for me, when I started, I had to go into my first movie, English not being my first language, and write it in Spanish, and then getting someone to translate it to me, and it was a whole painful experience to get to that script. And I think now it would allow non-English speaker writers to suddenly bring their stories in with the assistance of that, make it look and sound like a movie for the American audience at least, or the English-speaking audience. It's so many really good and positive uses of, mostly it's about the tools that didn't exist before. Those are the ones that I like to embrace the more, that didn't exist before now. The one that just does what people did really well, and you don't need the person, that's harder to embrace. But the ones that are new, that the not waiting times on renders, the technology that comes with even with translations and lip syncs and reshoots, I tell you. For the most practical approaches in movies, sometimes you have to go back to wherever we shot the movie to build everything again, just to get an actor to turn around and say one line. That's the one, personally, selfishly, I hope that that we'll be able to do it with AI. And I know we can, but these days it's just legally very complicated, and for many good reasons. But that's the one that and the actors don't want to also travel all the way somewhere else just to turn around and say the line once they've done all the work. So, so usually that's the one that I hope it will save. And they always say that the reshoots movies are made so much better. Marvel famously reshoots a lot and adds a lot of those things, and they really make them better. So for things like that, when you're already shot, an artist built a set, everything was done, and then once that's done, then you can let the AI help you to get that shot, that look, that master that you didn't get. Things like that, I think it's a bit harmless and will help push the movies that sometimes miss those things to where they need to get to.
Great. That's fascinating. And I agree. I feel like those things are all augmentative. We have a couple minutes, Richard. I was thinking, your prediction 5 years out, both in terms of the creative landscape and the technology.
5 years out.
Yeah.
That's so far.
Well, maybe do 5 months.
How about 5 months out? No, I think we will really get to the point where the environment that you're working in is completely interactive, and the scenario would be more like a director with a theatrical stage and actors, and to be able to interactively converse with whether it's the objects, the lighting, the people, and the actors, and be able to do that all in a real-time environment without any trepidation or fear about it. I think we'll see that happen, and I think it'll be much sooner than 5 years. I think the technology is, we're seeing it now with the runway on Vera Rubin. We'll see it with others, and LTX and others that are allowing interactivity to be a part of that process, and it's just going to become more and more commonplace. So to me, what we're going to see in the next 5 years is the worry of AI will fade, and the use of AI will grow, and more importantly, the stories are the things that are going to outlive it all and continue to thrive. That's what I think is going to happen.
Can I ask you a question? Is it something when we talk about all this, but mostly because at the end of the day, a lot of it is cost, right? Like it will be cheaper. Like you can do all these things, and now before involve all these people, and now you just get there quicker, right? A lot of us get there quicker. It feels like cost, but and this is a real question. I don't know the answer to this. Like, but what I do know is, I used to run a small VFX house in Uruguay, and let's say one shot will cost $1,000, and it took me a week to do. And then suddenly, I don't know, After Effects suddenly had automatic rotoscoping. So what it took a week, I did in one day. Did I charge the client less? No. He didn't know what I was doing or how quickly. Why? Because there's a difference between cost and value. And the value thing is the thing. So let's say we make a movie. You make a movie full AI. You did it just yourself. But the movie goes in theaters and makes millions. It doesn't, the value of it's going to be the same. So probably the people that provide that, they're going to charge the same. My only concern with that is less people making the same amount of money that used to be distributed. I'm from Uruguay. We're very socialist. So it's like all this money that went to all these people now, the cost is the same. It didn't reduce it. Whoever is paying for it paid the same. It just goes to less people. Does that make any sense what I'm saying, or I'm wrong? I hope I'm wrong.
Well, I think that the quality of talent drives us all. But I do think that the era of $300-400 million movies to make these grand things will be dramatically cut, and I think that will go out through the industry. But again, I go back to the point of the talent. If you're a great storyteller, you have a value. If you're a great director, you have a value. If you're a great musician, you have a value, and that's not going to be replaced by anything. I just think that these people are going to be craftsmen, and how they use these tools will be like, oh wow, this artist was able to take this technology and do something nobody else did with it because they were the artist that had the talent to begin with. So I think that the while I'm glad you were able to make more money for less time, great. It helps you make more movies and helps you get more content out. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what we all want, more content.
Like to finish, at least on my side, what we were saying the other day was, the models need real things to be shot so you can feed the machine and the machine can make it. Like if we give someone a model that we made today in 20 years, and if we stop making things, if you guys stop going out and shoot real things with the camera, the machine starves and it will just give you outdated images. Those renders we'll see will be about a street from 2025 because it could do it. No one else will ever go out in the streets again and shoot it because the machine can't do it. Yeah. But the irony here is like if you don't do it, then everything would look old like from a different times. Maybe you can take a photo and update the model just with a photo. It makes it easier. But as I was saying, like the best model needs a lot of footage. And it feels like probably right now would be the best. In my another theory is just the best model is the one that exists now because people still shoot and there's so much to feed it with. But when people start using it all the time, because I don't need to go shoot because I can use this, then 20 years go by, 10 years go by, and that model, it's old because it doesn't look. And again, the best things in art and everything requires innovation and change and a disruption for the way we used to do it, which this is what definitely does, but creatively to make the decision that was never made before. Every moment, every movie, everything that came out that was great, that made all of us that love movies here be here today, were movies that at the time made that thing that no one else had done or dared to do or say or looked in a way that nothing else looked like. And obviously, machine learning is all common denominator of everything that's done before. So it's and again, sometimes that's why I love the hallucinations of sometimes because they're the ones that they go, wow, this I've never seen before, more than the ones that is directed by a human being. So that's why I always encourage everybody, even if this exists, hopefully people will still shoot it because
course.
otherwise
I,
the machine will need it as well to be able to keep doing it, right?
Well,
So it's
human
like,
taste is never going to get replaced.
yeah. So
TV
hopefully there's
dinners
a
didn't
symbiosis
replace
there that we
restaurants,
reach.
and synthesizers didn't replace musicians,
Yeah.
and camera phones didn't replace photographers. AI is not going to replace movie makers. They're going to enhance and give more movie makers out there. So again, people enjoy that human connection, and that's the stuff that makes it all come to life, not the technology. Technology is fun, great, but it's really that story. Again, technology serves the story, and that's what it's about.
Couldn't agree more. What a fabulous discussion. Thank you both for joining us here at RenderCon. This was amazing.
Great to be here as always. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.